Alright, it's time for an update and forecast on the oak fire burning in Mariposa County. Throughout this video, the main thing that we're going to focus on is where the growth was today, where the fire is now, and then we're also going to do a forecast to see where this fire is predicted to go in the future. So we're going to look at what the fire actually looked like today from this camera. We're going to look at it from the satellite imagery. We're going to see all the most recent information from CAL FIRE, check out the evacuation orders, the timeline of the fire throughout the day today, where that growth was, where the heat is being picked up right now. We're going to look at a simulation of this wildfire, and then we're going to look at the fire weather forecast to see if we can see some easing with this fire in the future, or if these tricky, hot, dry, windy conditions will continue. So we'll just start off with the actual shot of the fire. It cooled down somewhat overnight. Didn't see as much activity, which is to be expected when your temperatures drop, your relative humidity goes up, and your winds die down overnight. So we started the day off. There was still certainly some moderate activity, but then it was during the afternoon. I really noticed it around 12 p.m. as that temperature started to go up. The relative humidity dropped way down, then those westerly winds picked up as well, and that's why we saw so much activity on this throughout the day today. Just backing up to the peak of the afternoon, you can see there's almost an inversion right there, and then you have this pyrocumulus cloud punching through that inversion. What that tells you is there is just a lot of heat being generated, and this is one of the main things that we actually study at San Jose State. It's almost like fire chasing. We drive large F-350 up to wildfires with a big radar on the back. It almost looks like something out of a science fiction movie, and we are able to actually see how the wildfire is creating its own weather, because with all of that rising motion you see right here, you don't just have a vacuum on the surface, so you get winds rushing in, and then that can lead to more growth on the ground. Now, a few other things that I notice. One, how much these trees are moving around. That tells you how windy it was throughout the day today. We also have some steep topography. Fires like to move uphill because those flames are able to preheat the fuels. And then also you can just see how much fuel is in this area. So it's all the ingredients for a large fire. Hot, dry, windy, fuel, topography, pretty much everything you can think about right there. Now, looking at the satellite imagery, key thing that I want to point out is in the morning, moderate growth, but then right as we got into the afternoon, as I was saying, once those temperatures went up, relative humidity dropped down, that's where we really started getting a lot of smoke coming off of this fire. So if we want to see the most recent numbers put forward by CAL FIRE, unfortunately, it is up to 11,900 acres, and it is at 0% containment. We will use that lat long when we check out the fire weather forecast in a second, but first I just want to come down here to unfortunately report on the most recent damages and losses. We do have 5 structures damaged, 10 structures destroyed, and I was reading another CAL FIRE report where they said, at least in the last update I could find, it said that 2,000 structures are currently threatened, and we'll check out a map where we can actually see where those structures are. And then we'll also forecast that growth for tomorrow to see where or which structures are likely to be threatened. Now, looking at the resources assigned, this is where some of the good news comes in. Every time I check this, there's just more and more resources showing up to this fire. And there might actually, I haven't actually confirmed this anywhere, but this fire is very close to where we just had, I wonder if you could see it on this map. You can. Where we just had the Washburn fire in Yosemite National Park right there. So I wonder if we still have some resources here that we were able to just quickly bring over to the oak fire. If anybody knows that, let me know in the comments so that I can officially report on that tomorrow. But looking at the resources assigned, 4 helicopters, 45 engines, 4 dozers, 4 water tenders, 403 personnel, and 11 crews. So just going back up there. Now let's actually just look at those evacuation orders. This is another thing, every time I look for the recent information, it seems like there's another evacuation order being issued. So as always, don't take what this map is showing you for the recent evacuation orders. You might be watching this video after the live stream. So I have the link in the description. Best thing to do is just go to that link, and then if you are in a place that has an evacuation order, that is when it is definitely time to get out of the area. So again, that link's in the description. But let's just look at the timeline throughout the day today. 12:17 p.m. This is when I really started noticing that fire activity picking up. It says fires making a significant run to the east and the north. We're going to look at that later because that was the direction that most of the growth was throughout the day. And west of Jerseydale Road with spotting across dozer lines. So that's the reason that winds are so important and is, I think, the most important variable within the fire weather variables to look at, because it's your winds that, if you imagine your fires right here, this is the perimeter. You have those winds blowing from the southwest. That's why the fire is going towards the north and the east. You get some good dozer lines in here. Maybe they drop some retardant. But then all it takes is one little burning ember to be picked up, dropped over those dozer lines, creates a little spot fire, and then all of a sudden that starts turning into a fire, connects with the major blaze, and then that's where you get some rapid growth. And that's something that we've seen throughout this entire fire. The spot fires leading to a lot of that growth. And a big reason for that is the fuels are just exceptionally dry right now. 97% of the state of California is in that severe drought category. So if your fuels are very moist, a burning ember might just drop down, not really do anything. But when it's very dry, it increases the probability that that burning ember will in fact turn into a full-blown spot fire. So it looks like Air Attack asked for 2 Type 1 copters. That was at 2:24 p.m. Based on that CAL FIRE report, it looks like they got those copters. And then right here, that's 3:40. It shows extreme fire activity still occurring with long-range spotting. So whenever you see long-range spotting, that gives you a good indication of 2 things. One, that the winds are relatively strong because it's able to pick up those embers and carry them farther distances. Stronger the winds are, farther it's going to be able to carry it. The other thing that it tells you is how much heat is being generated by this fire. When you get a lot of heat, like what we're seeing in this video right here, the higher it punches up, the farther those burning embers can go. So if you have a lot of extreme activity, it's almost like a positive feedback loop where that can lead to more spot fires and then lead to more extreme activity. But the other thing that I really wanted to point out on this, one were the recent evacuation orders, and then this right here, 11,800 acres per air attack and fire has reached the top of Footman Ridge, where it is slopping over into the canyon below. So that was one of the most recent reports where it actually gives us some details on where the fire is. And then Jerseydale Road just north of Triangle Road is completely compromised per radio traffic. Significant activity off the spot fire that started around Pinecrest Drive. So if you live in the area, you probably recognize some of those names that I just said, but if you don't, it's much easier if we actually just look at a map right here. Where that fire perimeter isn't exactly where the fire is now. You almost have to combine the 2 things that we're looking at on this map. Where the fire perimeter is and then where you see those little red dots, that tells you the general direction of the growth on this fire throughout the day today. I'm going to back up one sec. So as you can see, we had most of that growth was towards the northeast. The reason for that were those southwesterly winds. And you can't exactly take these dots as new spot fires. It's just the general heat that is being picked up by the satellites. Now, the even more recent ones, which again I have to put an even bigger disclaimer on. We're just going to switch to this for a second. Disclaimer on this is not everything under what I'm about to show you has burned. A lot of times they can create little pockets within the fire where they have been able to make a stand. And although with this fire, again, the top priority as of right now is on protecting life, number 1, and then structures, number 2, and just getting people out of the area. There's not as much actual, I can't exactly say that, but I was going to say there's not as much actually trying to stop the fire as there is just evacuating people to safety. At least that was some of the reports that I saw. So right now we're going to look at where this fire is right here. Actually, first I want to look at some of these cities around here. We've got Mid-Pines right there. We have Jerseydale. I think that's the number 1 area that I'm concerned about right now. And then Dara, hopefully I'm saying that correctly. then we have Triangle Road going through the fire right there. Jersey-Dale, the reason I'm most concerned about that is because when we look at the fire weather forecast, looks like we'll have similar winds to what we had today, which will try to push this fire towards the northeast once again. So right here, again, when I click this, it's not where the fire is right now. It's just a general representation of heat being picked up. But it does give us a decent idea of where that growth has been. We're just trying to piece together all the information. And not a big surprise, most of those new blocks that show up are towards the north and to the east of this fire, kind of corroborating, believe that's a word, all the other information that we've seen about the direction of the growth throughout the day today. Now, one thing, I'm going to turn this off because, again, that over-exaggerates where the fire is right now, so we're just going to stick with those hotspots. One piece of good news on this fire, and we kind of need some good news because so far this has been the most extreme wildfire that we've seen this season, over 10,000 acres in less than 48 hours. When we look at fire history, we have the 2018 Ferguson fire right here. And then we also have the 2019 Briceburg fire right there. And then if we zoom over, you can see where the Washburn just was. But if you zoom out, there's a lot of recent fire around the Oak Fire, and that's where some of the good news comes in, because when you get a fire like the Ferguson fire, it's able to clear out a lot of those fuels, and I can't guarantee this just because I don't know how much fuel the Ferguson actually cleared out, but a lot of times on these fires, it almost fits together like a puzzle piece. You can actually see that with some of these where you had the Briceburg right here, it bumped right into Montgomery, which burned in 2014, and then it stopped. And then it also bumped into where you had I believe that's the Ferguson fire scar in 2018, and then it stopped. So that's what I'm hoping is going to happen to the Oak Fire right here. They're able to hopefully protect some of the structures that are in this area, and then once it gets to that burn scar, a lot less fuel, so then it's just going to stop in its tracks like we often see with these fires. Because the fire needs 3 things to survive. It needs heat, oxygen, and fuel. All those winds just keep resupplying the oxygen. The heat's there because the fire is extremely active. So the one part of that fire triangle that we want to eliminate is the fuels, and hopefully we have a large section of area where those fuels already have been reduced, not only because of the Ferguson, but the Briceburg as well. Now the other thing that I want to click on right here is where these structures actually are. So those orange dots flashing are the structures. And it looks, again, I wish this had, we'll try to match it up right here. So we have our fire perimeter right there. Looks like Jersey-Dale is right there. If we match that up, it looks like those structures right there are what we're talking about with Jersey-Dale. That's the reason it is my big concern for this fire, is because most of the growth throughout the day today was towards the northeast, and you notice they were able to stop the Ferguson fire and protect Jersey-Dale, so hopefully they're able to do the exact same thing down here without the Oak Fire actually pushing up to where that burn scar is. But one other thing that we can look at is Wharf S Fire. This is a simulation that we run out of San Jose State. It's one of the best wildfire models in the world. It takes every variable you could possibly think of: topography, fuel moisture, fire, weather variables like temperature, winds, humidity, where the fire actually is right now, and then it makes a simulation of where that growth is going to be throughout the day. You notice as you get into the afternoon hours, this is going to turn into 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. That's where that fire activity really starts to pick up, exactly where we have been seeing, towards the north and towards the northeast. If you miss that, we can back it up again. That's at about 12 o'clock. And then you notice those wind arrows pointing towards the north and the northeast. And then that's exactly where that growth was throughout the day today. Not exactly, again, this is a model and it doesn't take into account fire operations. So a lot of times this is an over-exaggeration of where the fire would be, but it's a pretty good estimate of where the fire would have been without any firefighting resources. So this model usually makes me grateful for all those brave men and women out there. Now, Last thing we can do here, and this is usually the most important part of the video, we take the lat long, we go to windy.com, put it in right here. That's going to take us to general estimate of where this fire is. We could maybe, yeah, I think that's a pretty good spot right there. We'll just go with, I was going to say we could move it a little closer towards Jersey-Dale because that's the forecast we're especially interested in throughout the day today. Or throughout the day tomorrow, I would say. So let's go wind gust. Looks like same winds that we had yesterday. Or not, yesterday was actually stronger than today. Very similar winds tomorrow to what we had today, coming from that southwesterly direction, which makes me think the fire once again is going to be moving towards the north and towards the east. Now if we look at the temperature, that's where things are concerning. Still in the low to mid 90s throughout the day tomorrow. But even more concerning is when we look at relative humidity, right around the single digits tomorrow, and also the low teens. The reason that's important is because the drier the air is, the drier the fuels get, and then that ties into those spot fires that we were talking about earlier, where the drier those fine fuels get, the greater the probability that any burning ember is going to start a new fire right there. And then it also just increases the fire activity overall. So if I had to make a forecast for the Oak Fire, I would say that we're going to continue to see some growth towards the north and the northeast on this fire. Key spot that I'm going to be watching tomorrow is going to be Jersey-Dale. Don't want to scare anybody too much, but we do have a lot of personnel on this fire who are working extremely hard, and as we saw on this map, they were able to create a nice little barrier around Jersey-Dale with the Ferguson fire. So that's what we're hoping for once again on this one. But based on the fire weather conditions, it most likely is going to be staying active over the next couple of days because we'll be in the mid-90s, low relative humidity, and those same afternoon wind gusts that have been leading to some extreme behavior on this fire over the last 2 days. So this is the update and forecast for the Oak Fire today. I'll be back tomorrow night, probably around the same time, and then I'll also do continuous updates throughout the day on Twitter. Anytime I see the acreage increase, I'll do an update on Twitter with one of the live cameras just to keep you guys updated until I do one of these extended ones. So hopefully this video was helpful, and thanks for watching.